Come on, Jamie. All right. Jamie, get out of here. EJ, let's go. All right, very cool.
You should have warned me.
It was better this way.
Okay, sure.
Welcome everybody to Talk Heathen. It is season 2, episode 8, and I am joined by EJ Sorrell. Say hi, EJ.
Hi. Well, it's pronounced Sorrell, so
Sorrell.
let me say it right first.
I messed that up. I apologize. So, EJ, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Well, I am a fourth-year college student at UT Austin. I'm a double major, aerospace engineering and women's and gender studies, which I am aware is a very weird combination. I grew up secular. My parents are secular. They won't call themselves atheists, but they really are.
Okay.
I went to an Anglican school for a while because the area that I lived in, that was the good school, because private schools, you know. But by that point, I was already not going to be swayed by the school chaplain who hated me.
Nice. All right. So what are you doing in the atheist movement right now? What's your in?
Well, I'm currently the president of the Secular Student Alliance chapter at UT Austin.
Yeah, Secular Student Alliance. Okay.
And I've been involved with the Secular Student Alliance since my freshman year of college. I took a brief break my second semester, but then I got right back in, and I've been involved ever since. I've been an officer. I've been 3 different officer positions. I was the secretary, and then I was the vice president. Now I'm the president. So.
That's amazing. I'm really, really glad you're doing what you're doing and being able to provide a place at the college for people to challenge their beliefs for what a lot of people is the first time in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we're there for. We welcome religious members, of course, but we also want to create a space for secular students on campus to be able to meet other secular students, because, you know, it can be really isolating if you've deconverted or if you were never religious to begin with, that you don't have that whole, youth group and church group and all that kind of stuff, so that's that whole, community network that you're missing. So we try to kind of create that, provide that.
Good. And so, very, very briefly, just talk a little bit more about the Secular Student Alliance before we jump into calls. Can you tell me about a couple things that you do throughout the year, like Ask an Atheist Day or other events that are kind of normal that people should check out? So
Ask an Atheist Day, we don't really do that much just because we've done it in the past, but it mostly amounts to just we're tabling with signs that say Ask an Atheist, and we get approached about as often as when we're tabling normally.
Oh.
But we do, every semester we do a fundraiser called the Soul Auction, which is basically a way for us to raise funds so that we can, do cool stuff for our members and buy snacks and whatever for meetings and stuff. But the way that it works is we set out different jars with different religious organizations on them and different denominations and then an associated church or organization, and people put money into the jars of whichever organization they'd like us to attend. We also have one jar that says hell, and if hell wins, we throw a pizza party for our members, but we take the top 3 jars with the most donations, and we respectfully attend services at those institutions. So last semester when we did this fundraiser, we attended the Austin Stone, which we've gone to every single time. It always seems to win. We attended Noisi's Mosque, and what was the third one? We went to the University Catholic Center, which was interesting because Catholicism and Anglicanism are really similar, and the school that I went to was Anglican, so it was weird seeing the similarities and the differences, and I hadn't been in a church in God knows how long.
God would know. Rock on. Well, I'm super, super glad you're here, and I definitely want to plug what you've got going on because it's really amazing, and I absolutely love that it's available for students. Please, 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 if you're in college or you know someone who is, support your local Secular Student Alliance at your university. And if you don't have one, you can get in touch and you can find out what it takes to create one. It really is a nice place to be, and I'm really, really glad that you're doing it. So.
We have a Facebook page. You can like our Facebook page, facebook.com/SSAUTA. So like us there. And if you're a UT student, find us on HornsLink and come to our meetings. We meet on Wednesdays.
Rock on. Well, so before we jump into really anything else, there are a couple quick things that I need to get out of the way. So the first is the convention. Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience are going to the American Atheist Convention this year. We're going to have live shows. Woo! And it's really, really cool. It was mentioned offhanded last week that there was embarrassing video of Jamie and I dancing to things if we reached $1,000. So later on in the episode, we have to do it because we've reached $2,368, it looks like. And we are super, super happy. If you want to donate, we have a shorter link now. It's goaxp.org. That's goaxp.org. And before we do that, also, I just want to give out our quick information for Talk Heathen. Talk Heathen is filmed live, Austin. You can check us out by going to www.talkheathen.com. Find us on YouTube, which is where you're probably at, YouTube/Talk Heathen, Facebook Talk Heathen, Instagram, I'm Eric the Heathen, Jamie is Jamie the Heathen, and I'm probably forgetting other things, but that's about it. I want to get on to calls. You doing good?
Yep.
You ready? Mm-hmm. Let's do it. McKinley, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. So how's the journey going? What have you checked out this week?
I've checked out different websites. I've been listening to Cosmic Skeptic and different people, listening to what they had to say.
Did you have any questions for us today?
I did.
What do you got?
Okay, I was going to ask, why don't you fund me?
Why what?
Why don't you fund me?
Why don't we fund you?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? When you become an adult, you can move out to Austin, join the show. That'd be cool. Did you have anything else you wanted to ask about?
Yes, sir. I was going to ask about morals and instincts.
Okay.
Because I was going to ask, like I said earlier, I'm still a deist, but I think I'm kind of slipping in somewhat to an agnostic, but
Okay.
But right now, I don't think I've fully made it to that point. But this was a question that's been on my mind because I was going to ask, because most animals, right, are born with instincts.
Right.
Most animals know how to do certain things. They know how to mate. They know how to do they know how to, well, some of them know how to instinctively hunt, but humans, they have to have a sex education. They have to have all types of certain things, how to do this, even just the basic task that most animals would already know.
McKinley, I think that if we left boys and girls long enough, they'd figure it out.
I mean, given the state of sex education in our country, they do figure it out even if they're not told anything.
Yeah, but I feel you. It's really interesting the more you look at the progress of our species and what it takes and the investment that it takes to raise a human versus an animal, right? You have such a long period of not being an adult, not being out on your own. And so much of that goes into creating this incredibly social creature that we are. There are studies of children who have been completely left alone and not had no human interaction, and they don't develop speech. They're feral children. It's tragic, but it's interesting to see that there are instincts, but it's definitely interesting how those instincts play out, and yeah. So what about it? Did you have a question? What's on your mind? What's going on?
I don't know. Again,
right.
Well, that was really all I was wondering, just for the simple fact, because I wanted to know if, like, maybe instincts maybe somehow were taken out of us, maybe during our evolution to a point, maybe to make us more human, maybe.
Well,
I don't know.
Evolution doesn't really have a path. It just gets where it's going eventually. It wanders on, and what works, and what doesn't. But it definitely is something to check out. Both EJ and I are wearing glasses, and that would get us killed in the wild.
Well, I could speak a little bit maybe on the sciencey side of instincts. So I have a pretty heavy science background, and I'll try not to get too into genetics and everything like that. But We definitely do have instincts. I mean, if you think about it, if you put your hand on a hot stove, do you need to think, I should take my hand off of this hot stove because it hurts? No, you put your hand on a hot stove, you immediately take it off. That's an instinct. Breathing is an instinct. And if you're talking about instincts to hunt and to mate and things like that, I mean, we do have those instincts. If you think about the hormonal changes that happen when you fall in love with someone, or if you don't necessarily fall in love with someone, but you still want to sleep with them, that's still instinct that's playing into that, all the hormonal aspects of it. So I would say we definitely aren't creatures without any instincts whatsoever. It's maybe just masked a little bit in socialization.
I wasn't saying that we didn't have some instincts. I was just saying because the majority of our instincts, like our animal instincts, tend to be a lot more suppressed than most animals.
Well,
a lot of that has to do with social conditioning. I mean, if you think about it, when a lot of the way that our brains work has to do with how we're socialized, and a huge part of your personality is how you're socialized. And so those instincts may seem like they're masked because you've been socialized a certain way that maybe goes against the instincts that you have, but that doesn't mean that they aren't there. Socialization, actually, it's really fascinating, the whole genetics and epigenetics and all these kinds of things, but it's very, very complex, but really fascinating.
Oh. And what about morals? Just for why do you think we wear clothes? Why do you, I know we used to wear clothes to keep warm, but now it's gotten to a point where we feel embarrassed or shamed when we're without clothes. So do you think that's maybe a moral choice, or is that a moral instinct?
I'd again say that that's socialization. I mean, a lot of it is based on how you are socialized. If you're socialized that wearing clothes is necessary and being naked is embarrassing, then you're going to be embarrassed when you're naked. But you could go to Europe, they have topless beaches, and if you were to be topless at a beach here, people might look at you a little weird or be embarrassed about it. But you could go to Europe, they have nude parks and topless beaches and things like that, and nobody's embarrassed about it because they've been socialized that it's totally normal. It's okay.
In the States, it's a little more repressed, but there are still places, like just outside of Austin where we are right now. It's adults only, but there is a nude beach. It's called Hippie Hollow.
Did not know that.
I have been, and it was amazing. Oh, man, the freedom. It was excellent. It was excellent.
I think I'll skip that
I got a little bit of a sunburn, but that's fine. McKinley, we're going to let you go, and we look forward to hearing from you next week, okay? All right, you take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, I got a message from the chat, and I just want to point out, Bull, congratulations. Congratulations on your engagement. That's really, really awesome. We're really, really happy for you. So with that said, let's move on. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that before we go?
No, I mean, there's a very complex conversation you could have about morality and instinct and things like that. So I don't think we could cover it in
just an hour. No.
Yeah, probably not. That's something you could write a dissertation about, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you could write dissertations about every subgenre of that. But we are going to move on to someone in Brazil. Felipe, you are on live with Eric and EJ. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. And you guys?
We're doing excellent. What did you want to talk about?
Felipe.
Felipe. I'm sorry, that was not typed in correctly.
Felipe is a woman name here.
Let me fix that. Go on ahead.
Well, guys, first of all, I have to congratulate you for all your work, as an atheist. I'm seeing, even a different country, your work is very powerful. It's very cool for all the atheists in all the world, because we guys in all the parts of the world, we see the videos on YouTube. The videos are translated. I'm a big fan of the show and all the view.
That's awesome. Thank you. That means a lot. Wow.
Well, I'm a atheist, here in Brazil, and pretty optimist about the atheism. And I will say why. But first, I have to evoke the atheist power.
The atheist. All right, let's channel the atheism together. Do we need to eat a baby first?
Yeah, because I can't do that, you know.
Okay.
I can evoke all the global atheism power because we see a lot of videos in the Christians say, "I will gonna punch off your face of the name of Jesus." You know, I think we need an answer for that. So
yeah,
for that.
What about?
I will say to you, in the name of the global atheists, I want to hug all of you in the name of the
I want to hug you too, Felipe. That's awesome.
That's the answer for the atheists. So the the brutality of the Christians say bad words in your show, calling you. You know, we have to discuss things with education, like the first call you will talk the guy who's very educated. You know, I hope the Christians don't say bad words to you anymore.
You know, Felipe, I very much appreciate that, but I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with it, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm in a safe enough place in my life that I can, and I think that it's my responsibility to be able to do that so that you don't have to. The more that we can be out there for each other when it's safe to do that, the sooner that we can get the world accustomed to us, and the less next generation has to take care of. So while I very much appreciate that, and I hope that we can live in a world that's like that, until then, bring it.
Also, I'm pretty talented at saying bad words back, so.
Ooh, yes. Hey, there's no moral imperative that you can't. So there's that. What did you want to talk about specifically? I see a note in your.
Well, I want to ask your opinion about the one idea I have in mind. You know, because when they talk about religion, what religion sells to people, because it's a product. You know, the religion sells to people answers. I don't know. I don't. Of course, we think the answers are wrong, but the religion sell answers for all the things like creation of the world. You know, the healing with diseases, explanation about the things. You know, I'm sorry, my English. If I have something, I say something wrong, I'm sorry.
You're doing great. You're good.
Well, I think when you look bad, you know, you're not, if you're a Christian, when you look bad, you not go to the church, you go to the hospital, you know, and is that because you don't want the promise of the healing, you want the certainty of the healing, you know?
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna, with technology, the science, one day we discovered the most important product what religion sells is that this product will be immortality. You know.
Oh, that sounds good.
I disagree. I would not want to live forever.
Well, maybe not forever, but just like 1,000 years.
We're gonna fix that one day. It's not religion. It's going to science. Who, if we get in that point, I think the science will discover another religion. And when we get in that point, I think all the religions of the world we're gonna disappear.
You think so?
Because the certain will be in the science, in not the religion, or not in the religion. Will be, you know, if you, for example, transfer your brain for a robot and live forever, or doctors discovering a pill or something. I think all the religions of world we're gonna disappear in the next generations, and I want your opinion about that. If you can understand my terrible English.
So your English is way better than my Portuguese. So you're really good, man. I promise. EJ, what do you think about that?
Well, I wish that I could agree with you that the religions would just disappear as soon as science had all the answers, but I mean, when you think about the whole God of the gaps thing, of God fills in the spaces that science can't answer, and science is never going to answer all of the questions because that's not how science works, and that's not really how the universe works. So, when we didn't know what was above the clouds, then that's where God was, and now we know what's above the clouds. So, well, now we don't know what's outside the solar system. Well, that's where God is. Or now we don't know where, we know what's outside the solar system, so God is somewhere else. He's in the space between atoms or things like that. So I think that the interesting thing about the construction of God is that it's flexible enough to move into whatever space it can find, which is brilliant if it weren't so infuriating.
Yeah. Damn, that was good.
I wish I could agree that science would be able to overcome religion, but I think as long as there are people who still have those questions of why are we here, why do kids get sick, things like that, those aren't questions that science can necessarily answer, and people desperately want answers to them. So religion is going to exist as long as people want those answers.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that, fear is probably always going to be around as long as people are afraid. Religion has a really good way of saying, oh, don't be afraid of death, there's more. Don't worry about your child, in the hospital, because you have power over that. You don't need to be a doctor. You could just pray for them. And
you don't need that money. Give it to me, that money, because
you're investing it is what you're doing. You're planting a seed, and the Lord will pay you more.
Prosperity gospel.
Oh man.
Praise the dollar.
Those people are the worst. They are among the scummiest human beings I can imagine.
Yep. That's about all there is to say about that.
Do you have people like that in Brazil as well, or do you tune into American megachurches?
Yeah, of course. In Brazil, we have a very powerful preachers, that promise every single time of thing if you want to, imagine. For example, there is a guy here with the name Valdomiro. Is the preacher of the mega church in Brazil.
Voldemort?
One day he Valdomiro. This is a pastor.
Okay.
And a mega pastor in Brazil. And one time he said, well, if you want to we do a campaign in the church. You don't give the 10% of your salary, but 30%.
Yeah.
You
get more.
And very nonsense is he cries on TV, man. He cries on TV and say, I don't have money to pay my yacht.
Yeah.
My boat.
That poor man.
The guys giving to him money, and he cries, and it's no sense. It's absurd what happened here.
It is. Hopefully one day, I don't know if we're ever going to get rid of the idea of God, but I hope that one day we can create a world where people like that can cry in jail. Because when you when you take advantage of the weak, when you take advantage of people who are on fixed incomes, when you take advantage of people who are dying to take their money, oh man, there is not enough justice. Yeah, there is not enough justice. So I'm totally agree, and we're making that world.
That's why work is important. That's why I'm your fan of your show.
Aw,
and all the atheists who work hardly for the better world, for the separation of church of states. You guys, awesome.
Thank you, Felipe. That means a whole lot. Please keep in touch. Just talking to you now, there's so much that I want to know about what's going on where you are, because that sounds really interesting. If you are interested, go on Facebook. Check us out. We're Talk Heathen
right now.
You are? Create a post, and if you want to be involved in it, please, other people, check it out. I love being part of those conversations, and I definitely want you in the community. So if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. And if you want to email us and you don't want to be on Facebook, you can email us at, are we ready? mail@talkheathen.com. I'm just going to see if it's coming up on the board. Let's see. 3,
Now that you want it to be there, it's not going to be there.
That's okay. That's okay. Felipe, thank you so much for calling. We really appreciate it. It's awesome. I'm really glad that that you called in and we got to talk about that. Keep in touch, okay?
Okay, Glenn. Bye.
That was really nice.
Yeah.
See, that just gives me like the warm fuzzies when you know that there are people on the other side of the world that just, well, not the other, you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Elsewhere.
I kind of feel bad that my answer was, you're wrong, but.
Well, you know, the funny thing is being at the Free Thought Library, there are so many times when I'll say something and it'll just be, you know, an ism, it's a turn of phrase, and I'll say it, and then 3 atheists in the room will be like, hey, I read this really cool study that shows that you're wrong.
I'm definitely that person.
And you know, the funny thing is I am too. I love, and I'm totally cool with being wrong about things. I want to know more about the world, and I want to know as few false things and as many true things as possible. And so it's so interesting when you plug into that community and people are more interested in truth and finding truth than giving each other, you know, these false notions of, you know, yeah, I'm trailing off there. So I'm going to leave these two, and I'm actually going to pick up with Victor in New York. Welcome back, Victor. How you doing?
How you guys doing?
Doing excellent. You doing okay,
yeah,
Stal?
Good.
All right, you're live with us. What's going on, my man?
Awesome. I see you have somebody that's into science now, so now we could talk about.
That's me.
That's awesome.
If you want to talk about flat Earth, I'm an aerospace engineer, so I can tell you.
Oh, really? Well, that's
yes.
what I want to talk about. That's awesome.
I need popcorn. So, what did you want to?
So here's so last week I called in about. I said that there was 2 proofs for intelligent design, and we talked about the DNA and everything. I don't want to get to that, but
okay.
So the second proof, which is the absolute trump card, the absolute number 1 proof that we are in an intelligently designed universe. I know you atheists have been seeking for this answer for a long time.
No, we don't.
And here it is.
No, the answer is that you are constantly looking for truth in things, because if you settle on one thing and you're wrong, you know, you're less likely to dig in your heels, but you just want to, like we said just a minute ago.
Yeah, be okay with being wrong.
Yeah, know as many true things and as few false things.
Oh, no, yeah, I love being wrong, believe me.
Yeah, so you go right ahead. What is your ultimate thing? Go ahead.
Okay, so that we are not on a ball that's spinning 1,000 miles an hour, that's going around the sun 66,600 miles an hour, going around the galaxy 550,000 miles an hour, and the galaxy going through the universe at 1.5 million miles an hour. Absolutely just absurd. The Earth is operationally and functionally flat.
I highly suggest there's a amazing Monty Python song that does that. But this is so in your ballpark, EJ. I don't even want.
Well, I'm waiting to hear what the proof is.
Okay, so the proof that we're not on a spinning ball, number 1, is that water cannot conform to the exterior of a shape. You cannot do an experiment to make water go around any shape and stay there, like the way that the water of the Earth is, excuse me, going around the Earth, right? And then they say, oh, gravity. Okay, we should get into gravity. It's absolutely absurd. Also, how many things that gravity does magically, it does like a million different things. And it's all this one force that does all of these things. But if you disprove that one thing, that means that everything that you believe about the entire universe is wrong.
Well,
first of all, new cosmology.
First of all, gravity is measurable. We have a lot of evidence that gravity exists. There are a lot of different ways that we can prove that gravity exists. In regards to the whole water conforming to a ball thing, I think the big problem that you're having is that it's really difficult to think about things in 3D, because the force of gravity is due to the massiveness of an object. So, you know, I have gravity, Eric has gravity, you have gravity, but because we're such small objects, our gravity is basically negligible. It doesn't really do anything.
Well,
but when you get a lot of mass in one place...
Cavendish.
Sorry?
Yeah, so you should tell that to Cavendish, because Cavendish actually, when he did that test, which is the only test in existence to prove, quote unquote, prove that one object can attract another object by virtue of its mass alone.
Victor?
He was so sure that the test was so sensitive. The test was so sensitive that when he went to go take the measurements, he took the measurements outside of the barn, 100 feet away, with a telescope, because he didn't want his own gravity to interfere with the test. So if you're saying that your gravity is so small that it'll never affect anything, you should tell it to Cavendish.
I mean, I can't speak to, I can't say I'm familiar with Cavendish, but whenever that...
Well, you should.
I actually can. Victor.
I don't know who Cavendish is.
Yeah,
That's
Victor.
the only,
Victor, hello. You do know that the Cavendish experiment has been replicated by students every year at major universities for many years. It has been replicated so many times that it's almost a rite of passage at some colleges to perform the Cavendish experiment. You do know that, right?
Okay, so let's say that this is true. Let's say that the Cavendish experiment is true. So gravity is...
Whoa, hold on. So if are we sure about that? Are you good there?
I'm just gonna play devil's advocate.
You're playing devil's advocate? Okay, so what I suggest before you play devil's advocate is that you go to a university and talk to somebody. Because either one...
all the experiments on YouTube, I've seen them do it.
Go to a university,
that it's some other force.
Talk to somebody, and then you get to decide whether or not you're wrong or the entire world is against you in some major conspiracy.
Well, before we make the appeal to popular belief, something that might help with visualizing how gravity works in a more 2D version is looking up experiments where they take an elastic sheet and you put like a really heavy, like a ball in the elastic sheet, and then you can roll marbles, and the marble will actually orbit the ball as it kind of like spirals in. And that's a really good...
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. There are videos of this.
No, it doesn't. No, it goes directly to the center.
No. If you give it...
Go around a little bit. It'll go
if you give it a velocity.
And then it always goes towards the center.
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, it spirals in towards the center. That's how gravity works. It's an attractive force. And if you don't give it a velocity, it does go straight in. And that's exactly how gravity works, except in 3D. So when you have a mass, it essentially... Space-time is a complicated thing, and we could get into quantum mechanics, and we could get into relativity and general relativity and special relativity. But frankly, I don't want to have that conversation because that's one that requires several degrees to talk about.
When is Mercury going to get sucked into the sun? If it's been orbiting around the sun for like billions of years, when is it ever going to go towards into the sun? If the sun is so massive, the sun is 1,000,000 times the volume of Earth. You could put 1,000,000 Earths inside the sun. So that should just mean that Mercury should just make a straight beeline right into the sun. How come it's just going around in a circle? To me, that makes absolutely no sense.
I can answer that. So I took a class last semester called Spacecraft Dynamics. I'm currently in a class this semester called Applied Orbital Mechanics. And the way that it works is if you have something that is very gravitationally, powerful because it's very massive, you have an orbit. The way that an orbit works is the object is moving. And so you can almost think of it as it's falling towards the object, but it's falling sideways. So it's just constantly kind of falling in towards the object, but it's going around because it has that velocity that's making it go that way. And so it can be a little bit difficult to visualize, but those forces and the energy required to maintain that orbit can be calculated really precisely. Like Mercury is going the velocity that it needs to go to not get sucked into the sun. But fun fact, the moon actually is getting sucked in towards the Earth. Every year it moves a couple centimeters closer because it's so far away that it'll be a really, really, really long time before the moon gets close enough to actually be, drawn into the Earth's gravity. But it is moving closer, and that's something that we can measure.
Wouldn't that? Yeah, but okay. So now the Earth is going around the sun, right? So if the Earth is going around the sun, so you do understand that somehow, some way, in the wintertime, it's actually closer towards the sun. It's 3 million miles closer.
Yeah, it's in an elliptical orbit,
actually. Yeah. So when the Earth is going closer towards the sun, how come the moon doesn't get pulled more towards the sun when it's 3 million miles closer towards it?
Well, it does. I mean, gravitational forces act on everything. It does have an effect, and in fact, those are things that you can account for in measuring orbits, and even in the orbit of a spacecraft. Like the class that I'm taking right now, part of what we have to do is we have to account for the perturbations in the orbit caused by the sun's gravity versus the moon's gravity versus the Earth's gravity versus the shape of the Earth. Just even the fact that the Earth is not a perfect sphere affects the way that an orbit will move, and the orbit parameters will actually change over time because of the different gravitational effects of the different bodies in the solar system. And I mean, a lot of this is things that are measurable and things that we do account for in terms of measuring orbits and creating orbits and calculating the exact amount of fuel you would need to get to a certain orbit and the exact amount of velocity that you would need to leave one orbit and get to a different orbit. And these are all things that are, if you take a class on orbital mechanics, you'll actually learn about it. And it's really fascinating. I mean, I could talk about it all day. I'm sure I'm boring you with talk about orbit mechanics.
Yeah,
but,
I just think that like if you have something that has such an enormous amount of gravitational force, and then you have something as small as the moon, and then you have the Earth that goes 3 million miles closer towards the sun, it's going to throw off the orbital mechanics of the moon and the Earth relationship, and it's just going to. There's no way. There is absolutely no way. The Earth has been doing this. Earth has been doing this orbit around the Earth for 4.5 billion years.
What's interesting about that is that the gravitational force is actually not a particularly strong one. The gravitational.
I ain't even mad, bro. Go ahead.
Cavendish proved that it exists with just an object that's only 260 times heavier than another object.
Gravity does exist. It's just not a particularly strong force in terms of other forces that exist in the universe. Magnetism is also a fairly weak force. It has an inverse square relationship to the distance from the object. And so because you have that inverse square relationship, as you get further and further from an object, the gravity force gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And because we're so far away from the sun, yes, its gravity is strong. It's very, very massive. But 3 million miles over, however many dozens, hundreds of millions of miles we are from the sun, 3 million miles is actually not a huge difference in terms of that inverse square relationship and the strength of the gravitational force.
It's actually like 3 or 4% closer. To me, that's a pretty large margin.
It's not a large margin when you have an inverse square relationship with the force.
You have all these like super complex orbital mechanics, inverse square law. Like, isn't it more in accordance with Occam's razor to just be like, the sun is just orbiting over my head because that's how I observe it, right? Then when you go outside, right, and I look straight up in the air.
But Occam's razor applies to situations where the other options aren't viable, whereas these things are measurable. I'm in a class right now. My professor for this class, his whole life is he does this kind of orbital mechanics. He works for a bunch of different organizations that he's done these calculations for, and they launch satellites, and you have to do all of these complex calculations in order to make sure the orbit is where you need it to be to accomplish what you need it to accomplish. Like satellites that provide your internet, they have to be in a particular orbit, otherwise it's not actually going to function, and you need to know where that satellite is.
Don't exist.
Satellites don't exist.
Satellites is absolutely ridiculous.
Then how are you calling us right now?
No, there's no such thing as satellites. So if a grain of sand hits a satellite, the satellite is completely destroyed. It's only at 17,500 miles an hour, and we have 30,000 satellites in the sky. How is it that not one of these satellites ever gets hit by something?
They absolutely do get hit by things.
25 years or something,
Victor,
and the ISS never gets hit by anything, and it never moves its orbit.
Victor, when you make a statement and the other person wants to respond, you need to let them respond, because you're saying a thing and then you're blasting off with more things, and we can't respond to any of those things.
Also, when you say a statement, you kind of need to back it up with evidence. Like, do you have a study that shows, well, satellites don't actually exist? Because I have a lot of evidence in my classes that satellites do exist.
It's just simple logic. If you have 30,000 satellites in the air, if one of these satellites gets hit by something the size of a grain of sand going at 17,500 miles an hour, that satellite will be absolutely destroyed.
Actually, satellites do get hit by things all the time.
It's going to hit it at such a force that it's going to throw off your orbital mechanic of it, and there's no way that you're going to be able to correct the orbit of the satellite, because you're in a vacuum, right? And you can't steer it. It's not like you have rudders on it.
These are all things. These are things you can account for.
So once you get hit, that's it. It's over.
Well, okay. First of all, responding to your first point, space debris is a real concern. There's a whole lot of there are governmental organizations whose entire job is to track space debris. companies like SpaceX or whatever, they have to track space debris because you need to know where it is. And we know the orbits that a lot of space debris exists in, but you need to know where space debris is because it will actually damage satellites. Like you said, satellites do get damaged. I mean, there are satellites that get damaged, and we have to send up other satellites to repair them.
That's ridiculous. How can you believe this? It's science.
I believe it because I'm studying it and I know the science behind it.
Religion.
And because Victor,
Victor,
EJ is not appealing to personal incredulity, but wants to actually learn the thing. EJ's not saying, hold on. EJ's not saying, I can't understand it, therefore it's not true. And up until this point, that does sound pretty much like what you're saying. So
no, I'm saying that it's impossible. There's no way that these can. Like, listen, as you're saying the things that you believe, see the things with like.
Well, the difference here is that it's not something that I believe. It's something that I know to be true.
When you're actually explaining these things to someone like me, and then you start realizing how ridiculous this is, you start laughing because you just said, "Oh, well, what did the?"
I'm actually laughing at what you're saying.
We have to send up other satellites to fix them. This is science fiction. This is not true. Okay? How can you have a satellite up there and then it gets hit by something, and then you send up another satellite going 17,500 miles an hour to go and fix it? Come on, what are you joking?
Because we can calculate the necessary thrust that you need to get it into the atmosphere, and you can calculate the amount of fuel that you need to produce the thrust to get into the orbit that you need. Like, I know I could sit here and calculate, okay, this is the velocity that I need to be in this exact orbit, and this is the velocity that I'll need to have in order to catch up to this particular satellite. I mean, there's entire fields dedicated to how do I go from the orbit that I'm in to the orbit that I want to be in? How do I catch up to a spacecraft that I want to be, next to? It's entire complex fields of orbital mechanics that you could take, 7, 8, 9, 10 classes on it and still, have more to learn. And it's really fascinating because there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the ISS has been up there for 20 years, never gets hit by anything.
It absolutely does get hit by things. Space debris is a big issue.
If the ISS gets hit by something, then the orbit of the object, there's no way you can correct the orbit of the ISS.
That's patently untrue.
Yeah. So
how is it untrue?
Because go ahead.
No, that's all right. Find evidence to back up your assertions. Email it to us. Email it to us, Victor.
To refute what you believe. That would
be you're so
dismissed without evidence.
Well,
yeah, there's evidence. You're just not willing to look it up.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not responsible for forcing you.
We understand how forces function. Like, I can calculate the torque that would be applied to the ISS by space debris impacting it if I know the mass and the velocity of the debris that hits it.
Right. But just because you could do a mathematical equation to prove something, that doesn't mean that it's real. I could do a mathematical equation right now. I can
do that mathematical equation, and then
the Drake equation 2.0 and say that the dragons created the universe 7 trillion years ago, and I'd be like, oh, since I created the mathematical equation, you can't say that I'm wrong. I just made this equation. It makes all sense in the world, and I just proved that dragons created the universe.
Okay. You brought up Occam's razor earlier, so let me bring up an Occam's razor to you. What's more likely, that we can calculate these things and then we can measure them to be true, and we can check our calculations and that they're accurate, and we can check that, well, we can observe this satellite through a telescope, like we can check that these things are true, or there's a huge governmental conspiracy that says that these things are true, even though there's not, No,
you just said that you could see a satellite and a telescope?
Absolutely. You need the right telescope, and you need to know exactly its position in the sky that you were looking for. You can look. You can see the ISS.
Heathen's website or something like that.
Wonderful idea. For those of you who are watching, hop onto the Facebook, Talk Heathen Facebook, and please, just demonstrate to him.
Victor, you can actually see the ISS.
Listen, I'll just prove satellites right now. If it's so easy to prove that satellites exist, you just said right now that you could use a telescope, a special telescope, and you could see satellites. So that must mean that there must be thousands or millions of images of satellites online, right? So let's go to Google right now. Let's.
The University of Google.
Go on Google right now.
Here, I have a fun
satellite.
Victor, listen, Victor. I have a fun experiment for you. Okay. There's a website where you can look up exactly when the ISS will be passing overhead and be visible. I can't remember the website off the top of my head, but you can find it pretty easily. And it's literally just, it will tell you which which satellites would be passing overhead. You can look up, in this time period, when will the ISS be visible? And it's generally visible close to sunrise or close to sunset, because you can see it kind of like in the. It's hard to describe exactly where it. You can look up exactly where it will be located, the latitude and longitude, and you can see that with the naked eye. You don't even need a telescope to see the ISS.
Exactly.
So go look up, Victor. I have homework for you. I have homework for you.
Let's pause right there.
I have homework for you.
Right there. You just
look up.
Listen.
Look up when the ISS will be passing overhead.
Yeah. Victor, you're on hold.
Yeah. Look up when the ISS will be passing overhead, and then get outside at that time and look for it. Because if you look hard enough, you will see it. The ISS is visible to the naked eye.
Yeah. And Victor, this is not your show. So we tell you, and you can be good with it or not. That's fine. But when we have something to say and you won't let them talk, then you get put on hold. So I'm going to take you off of hold. You still there?
That you just made. Hello?
Were you talking so much that you didn't know I put you on hold and talked to you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, okay. Call back when you can do that. All right.
Ooh.
So.
All right. That was fun. I got my heart rate up. Yeah.
So, you're amazing. You are so amazing.
Listen, I'm an aerospace engineer, baby. You can tell me that
I need a show for you, and I need to open for you, and I'm gonna be like, holy crap, I knew EJ back in the day.
Orbital mechanics.
Do it. Oh my gosh, that is.
Listen, orbital mechanics and spacecraft dynamics were my favorite classes. So, I'll talk to you all day about this.
I
took an exam last week on this stuff, so come on.
Come on. I am so glad that people as smart as you exist, because that just oh man, we would be screwed as a species if everybody was where I'm at. So I'm so glad that other people can do the hard work there, because man, that made my day. That made my day. Before I move on to the next caller, I'm going to do something because Jamie is not here and I get to. So really quick, Ryder, buddy, happy birthday. I miss you, and I hope you have an amazing, amazing day. So Ryder, happy birthday. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me do that. I appreciate that.
How dare you wish
know,
somebody
right?
happy birthday. I'm so offended.
He's a wonderful friend of mine who's in California who is just amazing. So let's move on, because people don't like the interstitial time. They complain about it. And so we're trying to.
Yeah, I want to argue with somebody about orbital mechanics again. Come on. Let's talk about rocket dynamics now. I'm ready.
Okay, well first, actually, you know what? Let's go to Tom in North Hollywood, because that actually has some relevance. Tom, how are you doing today? You're live with Eric and EJ.
I am quite well, thank you. I am delighted. EJ, you kicked ass.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do I? No, I haven't watched every episode since you guys started. Are you the first female host that we've had on the show here?
I am not the first female host because I am not female, but I am the first non-man host.
Geez, I didn't realize that. Host, okay.
I'm non-binary, if that's something you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Right, well, I apologize for my I'm an old fart. What can I say?
It's okay, I understand. I get it all the time.
You need a piece of graffiti in the break room. You need sign a napkin or something and tag it up in the break room. You kicked ass. That was absolutely outstanding.
Well, I had fun doing it.
Good. And you actually had
congratulations. Do that again. What else you got, sister? I wanted to say to Felipe from Brazil. He was talking about immortality and science, and that someday God will become. I didn't catch the whole thing. My internet went out in the middle of it. But I think that he missed a bet, because for a lot of people, religion holds out the possibility of seeing their loved ones again, being reunited with people who are gone. Mm-hmm. And that's an enormous reason why some people just can't let go of their religious beliefs, is because it holds out the expectation that they will be back with their whoever, their parents or their loved ones. And that's an important thing. I think faith in God will never go away, because science will never be able to cover that last. I don't know that science will ever be able to answer that question.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all I really have to say to that. That's
okay. It's definitely I think it's tragic that religion will break your leg to sell you a crutch that way, and sell you on something that's going to boost you up to a place where I mean, we live in this world, and everybody wants superpowers. You know, I was talking to an ex-Mormon, and they were talking about what happens when you join the priesthood at 10 years old or something like that, and you get special powers. You get the power of discernment. I want powers. I want the ability to speak languages without having to study them. I want the ability to heal people with the powers of my hands and bring people back to life and make money appear when you haven't invested or worked for it.
I wish I could fly so I could carry Victor up and show him the Earth isn't flat.
Right? There you go, right.
So, I mean, I absolutely get you. As long as people are willing to lie to others,
Yeah.
I gotcha.
It's about power. Yeah. So
I see something in the notes.
How many other people have you got online? I've got a story about the parable of the archer, but I need to know if there are other people waiting to come on.
Yeah, we have full lines, but let's try and get you through, because I think it's awesome. So because we get to choose.
Well, I'll try to make it. All right. Well, thank you. I'll try to make it quick then. And my source on this is Russian folklore. I make no representation that that's the only possible source for the story. One day, a nobleman was out riding in the countryside, and he saw a barn up ahead. And as he got closer, he realized there was something odd about one of the sides of the barn. And he moved up. It looked like there were spots painted all over the side of this barn. And he rode up closer, and he realized that there were bullseye targets painted on the side of this barn, and in the center of every target was an arrow perfectly placed right in the middle of the bullseye. And he got really excited. He ran over to the farmer and he said, "Who fired those shots? Who's the archer? I want that man for my army. I want that archer to be in my army." And the farmer took him over and showed him where the bullseyes had been painted on the side of the barn, and there was paint on the arrowheads. So the bullseyes had been painted after the arrows had been shot.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times people talk about prophecy, and I think there are prophecies that can be fulfilled and there are prophecies that can be achieved. And there's a difference there that comes into it from time to time. I don't know. I had someplace else I was going with that, and that's basically the idea. Prophecies can look different from the back end than they did from the front end, and people don't always look at that.
Oh, absolutely. And the more vague you are, the better. You can hit any part of that barn and still get exactly where you wanted to go, because you painted in it after the fact. So that's a really nice one. I like that. That's a great illustration of just that. Anyway, Tom, thank you for calling in.
I will clear off. Thank you very much. You guys are doing a great job. Huge props to EJ. Yeah.
Right?
Not to take anything away from you, guy. You know.
No. So I know I'm not a smart person, Tom, but I'm smart enough to surround myself with smart people. And so I'm just going to keep
What else
that.
do you need? Yes.
Right?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
It's cheating in life.
Well, listen, if you try to argue with me about an area of expertise that I have, I'm going to...
Tom, I remember you calling from early on in the show. I'm so glad you're still listening. You take care, all right, brother?
Oh, you guys, I wish you all the best in the world. Eric,
what's up?
Eric, there are things you might want to look at in Roger Zelazny's Lord of Light.
Okay.
Have you read that one?
I haven't.
He never claimed to be a god, but he never claimed not to be. Roger Zelazny, Z-E-L-A-Z, Lord of Light.
Okay, so I'm on a show and I don't have a pencil and paper, so email it to me, okay?
Oh, all right, I'll do that. You take care. Bye-bye.
You too, brother. You know, sometimes you do look at that and it would be so easy to make a prophecy and to be fabulously wealthy, just start a little cult.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, we watched Life of Brian, my Secular Student Alliance. Hey, plug the org. We had a Christian movie night. We watched Life of Brian recently, and there's this great bit where he's walking along and seeing all the prophets, and they're just so vague, like so actively vague. And it's like, there was a man who will do a thing, and it's like, well, yeah, if you're vague enough, anything will happen.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Okay. So that was them. I'm going to leave this person. I don't have too much longer. I'm actually going to be doing our first on-air swap in just a little bit. Jamie's actually going to come and join you. But before that, I'm going to leave this for him, and I am going to go to someone right in our backyard, Pat in Pflugerville. How's it going?
Hello, how you doing?
Doing good. You are live with Eric and EJ.
Thank you. Can I give you, do you prompt me or do I wait?
Oh, you are live on air. What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about black atheists. I'm a black atheist.
Okay.
And how hard it is to be a black atheist in the community.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this, I've been, because I'm local, I've been actively protesting some of these evangelical churches. I did two today because as a black person, I really can see the racism that is hidden, not even hidden, is overt in the church, and their ties to Trump. And I have a problem with it. I have a real problem with it. And I'm calling BS on them these days. And I'm doing that locally. And I just wanted to let y'all know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How come you're not here in studio? You're so, come on.
I did it this morning, 2 locations. Only evangelical because that's where I have my,
well,
the way things have gone lately.
Well, one of these days when you do have a chance, come on down. We'd love to meet you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I am a white passing male, and so I get a whole lot, and because of that, I can't really speak to your experience, so there's not really, I can't be like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I'm just going to take your word for it and be as supportive as I can. Pat, thank you for what you're doing.
And I appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else before we let you go?
No, that's it. Thank you so much. I love the show.
Yeah, cool. You take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So before we move on, I just want to remind people you can get in touch with us, mail, M-A-I-L, at talkheathen.com. You can find us on Facebook, Talk Heathen. You can find us on YouTube.com/Talk Heathen. You can look me up on Instagram, Eric the Heathen, Jamie up on Instagram, Jamie the Heathen. There it is, mail at talkheathen.com. Also, like and subscribe. Get this out. We're going to be at a big conference, and no one's going to know who we are. So just like tell people. You may have heard of us.
Comment about how much you like me so they invite me back.
Holy crap, you have no idea. We're getting, the chat is flooded with love for you right now.
Do I get to read it afterwards?
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Little
absolutely.
ego boost.
Yeah, Jen, if you can screen cap that. Oh, it's already, awesome. All right, let's see. Actually, I want to check the fundraiser to see if anybody was able to fundraise. Can we get, let's see, 2,423. Let's get halfway there, you guys. Come on, we have just a little bit left. I know we can do it. Can we push to the 2,500 mark? Can we hit that mark? It's so close. Let's get it. Just so you know, Talk Heathen listeners and viewers, we raised more than the Atheist Experience did in the first few hours after the show.
Wow.
I know, because we're awesome. Because we have the best fans. Not that there's any crossover, but you know. So yeah, 2,423. Let's get there. We're almost halfway there, and it's been a week, and I'm so proud of it. So I am going to move to. Which one do you want?
Ooh, one is very tempting.
Let's do it. Oh, nope. Damon in Myrtle Creek. You're on with Eric and EJ. Mr. Jamie.
Hi, how are you doing today?
We're doing excellent. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. I called in last week about conspiracy theories and whatnot, and I wanted to call in to tell you guys something else ridiculous I came across this week. And it really illustrates how dangerous faith can be, in my opinion. So there's this man, he has a website and a YouTube channel. I don't really want to plug him in.
And don't.
But he used to have a more substantial amount of subscribers. It recently dropped to like 6,000.
Okay.
But basically, what this guy does, he travels worldwide and stuff, I guess, and they put together these seminars, and so there's a claim he went through like a really rough path and whatnot, and apparently God gave him this ability to heal people by just like looking at them. Okay, so there's these seminars of a projection of basically an old man that kind of looks like Fabio, looking very sensually and kind of oddly disappointed at the same time in a camera for about like an hour. And like people will like watch these live streams, and basically what him staring at you does, it's like it heals cancer, it heals diseases like that. It gets you more spiritually connected, and you can see the reactions of people watching this stuff, and they're like crying their eyes out and stuff.
I think I've heard of this.
You have?
I've seen a video of it. It's very weird.
What blows me away is the accusation that, how can you be moral when you're an atheist and yet you have just the most immoral crap? I could not imagine somebody being able to justify, okay, you're looking into a camera and people are doing that, like wanting to be healed by your gaze over medicine?
Yes.
Right?
Imagine the ego that it takes to do that too. Like, you gotta think you're...
If I didn't have morals, I would want that job so bad.
It's like the ultimate staring game.
Right? Sensually, but a little disappointed.
He doesn't have to say anything. He just looks. People want to talk about con artists. He says nothing. His comments are disabled, of course. Like people just hop in this live stream and expect something he can't deliver, obviously. And it's really a clear illustration about how desperate people are to have something, an answer. And it's disgusting when people take advantage of it like that.
It is.
In my opinion.
Hey, Damon, I want to continue the conversation with you. I'm going to pop you on hold really quick, okay?
Alrighty.
All right, cool. So this is the part where I magically disappear and Jamie will magically reappear. We hit over $1,000 in the first week, and we announced that we were going to play a really silly video of Jamie and I dancing and singing along because we had a caller that brought it up, and now that it's out there, now it has to happen because that's how things work, apparently. So stay tuned. The show will go on, but I will not. So I personally will see you next week, and Jamie will be on after the break. Here's a silly video. Bye, everybody.
And we're back, baby.
That was adorable.
Oh, you. Well, Eric kind of softballed that because not only did we raise more than $1,000, we are well above 2,000 and less than 100 from being halfway to our goal. We had 4 weeks, we've made it halfway in 1 week. I don't have a specific promise on what we're gonna do when we make it all the way there, but you can bet, because I feel no shame for that video, at the very least, I'm gonna find the music we were dancing to and do my best to sync it. If not, have a dance-a-thon for 8 hours where at least one of us is dancing. Something like that. So, someone from the audience is trying to give me a suggestion, but I can't hear them. So, yeah. So, my psychic powers tell me that you have been killing it, basically.
That's what I've been told.
Good job.
Well, listen, if you're gonna argue with me about something that I am literally in a class about right this second, I think I'm gonna win. Like, sorry.
NBD. EJ's awesome. All right, so you guys were on the phone with whom right before I showed up?
I think it was Damon? The Dangers of Faith.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. In that case, Damon, you're back on the air with a slightly different arrangement of heathens. I'm doing marvelously. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Before I got put on hold, I was talking about basically a guru that people pay money to. Basically, he looks into your soul all creepily, and it's supposed to heal your cancer. It's supposed to heal your mental problems. It's supposed to get you closer with the Lord or whatever. And yeah, I was basically saying that it's a very clear illustration of how desperate people are to hold on to an absolute answer.
Yeah.
What would you have to say about that?
Not knowing things is uncomfortable. My understanding is that our mind works in many ways on a series of carrots and sticks, and understanding things is something that our brain rewards us for, and not understanding things is something that our brain makes us feel uncomfortable about. So if someone hasn't and being wrong about things is something that our brain makes us feel uncomfortable about, so that we're motivated, evolutionarily were our ancestors, etc., to find the correct answer and operate on that and not be wrong. But like many things that develop through a process of evolution, it perhaps was not, intelligently designed such that it didn't have flaws. I don't know. Have you touched on this topic already?
Yeah, well, I've actually heard of the guy that he's bringing up, and it is very uncomfortable to watch because people are just like sobbing as he stares into their eyes a little bit, and it's just. I think it's, honestly, it's a great example of like the power that our own psychology has of like, if you believe that this man is going to cure you, he's going to make you feel so, he's going to make you feel all the emotions, he's going to make you, happy and know all the answers, and you go in believing that, as soon as that man starts staring at you, like, if you believe it hard enough, it's going to start happening. And it's not necessarily that he's actually doing anything, it's just really the power of our own psyche, which is really fascinating, but, not really an act of God.
Yeah, it's the sort of, we have the things that we do affect how we feel way more than we give them credit for. And way less than we give them credit for as far as affecting things out in the world, like curing cancer.
I have one more question. Do you think this type of manipulation is prevalent with kind of a multitude of different things? I want to bring up ancient aliens as an example. What would you have to say about that? I mean, there's pseudo history and whatnot, of course, but it's the same type of emotional manipulation, in my opinion. It's appealing to an already held down belief. It's kind of illogically concluded.
I mean, not necessarily. So I know people who did not have any ideas about this who had a significant interest in history, who began watching Ancient Aliens are now think differently about the history of the human race on Earth. Watching people start to believe things that I think are uncredible has been one of the less pleasant experiences in my life.
Right.
So I would say it's not necessarily appealing to someone who already believes that there are aliens, that aliens created, chipmunks, or gave us all technology because humans are useless and helpless, blah, 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 or that transdimensional aliens are feeding information to globalists, and that's why they're engaged in this conspiracy to control society and facilitate false flag, blah, blah, Alex Jones exists. But, I don't think that necessarily the show was created for them. I think particularly Ancient Aliens is created with a profit motive, and that it appeals to a kind of human desire to find things out, right? When you discover, in air quotes, that the world is actually controlled by a conspiracy of aliens, you've learned something that, if it were true, would be, foundation changing and fantastic. And it's like getting a really strong hit of dopamine, right? And so, as a skeptic, I'm borrowing this language, but as a skeptic, you kind of have to be a narc. And tell people, no, evidence would be good. And it's fun to be persuaded by things like that, right? It's the watching the video that persuades people, and then watching the debunking video, and you can get that hit twice, actually. But people believe things for bad reasons. Skepticism is hard. It takes effort. It takes research. Research is hard. One source means nothing.
Right. Like the guru I was speaking of earlier would lure people in with his sob story of his past and whatnot. I believe it's the same method of trying to convert. I wasn't necessarily saying that it just appeals to people who already believe it. I was just merely stating, if you do happen to already believe it, you're going to think it's the best thing on the planet, I mean, the flat Earth thing, nobody really believed that till recently, I believe. It's been kind of
someone
booming.
Did.
There's always one.
Yeah, there's lots of, do you really believe we're on a ball? That just does not make sense. It's the kind of Chewbacca defense.
My big metric is how much harm is it causing? Because, flat earthers, if they want to believe the Earth is flat, they're wrong, but, they're not going to go out and, fight someone about it. They might, but not physically, hopefully. But if they're not hurting anyone, then I'll still argue with them, but I'm less concerned about it than maybe the guru guy who's telling people he'll cure their cancer by looking at them. So my big metric is how much is it hurting somebody, is about how much I care about trying to dissuade them from that opinion.
A lot of those conspiracy theories, though, they promote distrust, in a lot of scientific communities and whatnot, and the government and whatnot, and it kind of promotes the idealistic mentality of acting out on a terrorist ploy. If you're not trusting anybody that actually has knowledge of things, you're able to interpret that with any type of weird philosophy you want, because you're just lying about reality at that point. And you can basically take advantage of people like that and sucker them into anything. That's the danger of it. They might not be hurting people, but eventually they could get suckered into somebody that wants to.
I might have to push back on you a little bit on that, because I think that the kind of person who's going to go out and do something terroristic, drastic, because of some ridiculous belief was going to do that regardless of what belief they're using to justify that action. I don't think that somebody's going to suddenly believe that shape-shifting lizards are running the government and then suddenly that's what gives them the catalyst to go out and do some kind of horrible thing. I personally feel like if somebody is inclined to do that, they'll find a belief that justifies them doing that, not necessarily the other way around. But I mean, that's not to say that you're absolutely wrong. Like, I'm sure there's somebody out there who found some ridiculous belief and decided to do something horrible because of it, but there's always one.
I'd like to add the caveat
That's
that,
a chain reaction.
well, what were you saying, Damon?
You know, it provides a chain reaction of stupid beliefs, and the stupider, the more dangerous.
Yeah, I mean,
that's merely all I was saying.
yeah, I agree.
Of course,
I mean,
I'll already do it.
I would say in slight disagreement, or at least caveat to what you said, is that there are certainly people that even if they were indoctrinated or subjected to that, wouldn't go through with that, right? There are people who have sufficient empathy that murdering another human being because, you know, they're gay or whatever, or beating their children with a stick isn't something that happens regardless of what you tell them. But there's a certain level of, like, violent childhood indoctrination, particularly combined with the unbelievably oppressive sexual repression. There are ways that you apply pressure to a human's mind that can affect what their normal behavior would be. But for the most part, yeah, whether or not it's, I don't think we're going to see any flat Earth terrorists, if that's what we're talking about. But you can encourage people to believe dangerous things. If not, I mean, terrorism is a bit extreme, but convincing someone that vaccines are going to kill their children, or I'm sorry, give their children autism. I didn't want to misspeak and misrepresent the misrepresentation there. But yeah. But it you know. Did you do team debates at all?
Yeah, I did debate.
Sorry
in
to
high
knife
school.
you. But yeah, sorry. What were you saying, Damon?
I do agree that they'll already do those things. Mm-hmm. It's just we kind of need to weed out as many of these weird justifications as we can.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Skepticism.
I will never defend somebody's right to believe the wrong thing. Yeah. I just tend to prioritize certain wrong things over other wrong things of what I am more concerned with getting rid of. Yeah. Dissuading somebody of that belief.
The guy who now makes, I don't know what you call a flat Earth globe, but basically that.
The disc?
Yeah. I mean, but like
the Earth's vinyl.
The Earth, yeah. The vinyl Earths with the domes on them or whatever has a business, and I don't really, you know, they don't have bombs in them or anything, so I'm fine, right? The belief that people should be thrown off buildings, I have a bigger problem with. Yeah. Also, I actually I find the phrase "right to believe," even just that phrase, problematic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because that's not how rights work.
No.
But you know, it's common parlance. All right, Damon, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, that was mainly it. I just wanted to really paint an illustration of how dangerous this stuff is, and it's not just with you know, the Christian faith or Islam. You know, anybody can really take advantage of these emotions, and it's
not just with religion.
It can change the effect. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well,
all right. Cool.
You guys have a great day.
You too. You know our social media, and we appreciate your call. Call back in if you find more danger.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Bye. Well, our first team up for a call. I think that went pretty well. So, how combative do you want this next call to be?
Well, you may not have heard the segment with Victor, but I'm let's just say I'm pretty willing to be fairly combative.
All right. Well, prepare yourselves. Hamish, you're on with Jamie and guest EJ. Or are they saying EJ Sorrell?
EJ's fine.
EJ.
I go by EJ. Sorrell's my last name.
Oh, okay.
Also pronounce it correctly, God.
Sorrell?
Sorrell.
Sorrell.
Eric did it wrong too at the beginning. He introed me and mispronounced my name. But.
Well, you got to set both of us right. Hey, Hamish, how are you doing today?
I'm somewhat disturbed by certain things in the culture. Now, if I may begin.
Do you mean Scottish or American culture? Sorry to insert myself already.
The general, all culture permeated by bad faith and by atheism.
Bad faith being non-Church of Scotland?
But bad faith being us.
Okay. I mean, presumably he has a problem with Islam as well. Still, he's a repeat caller.
Now, may I ask you this? Do you agree with the following statement? Those who believe absurdities are likely to commit atrocities.
If your question is a litmus test of do I agree with that, the answer is no.
I mean, people who believe absurd things aren't necessarily going to commit atrocities, and people who commit atrocities don't necessarily believe absurd things. I think it's kind of a Venn diagram you've created, and I agree the middle exists, but I don't think it's a circle.
Yeah.
Some people have attacked abortion clinics. You think that this has nothing to do with their belief in the sanctity of the soul of the unborn?
To be really clear, though, do you think that a belief in the sanctity of human life is absurd?
That's not relevant.
I think it's a separate statement. He's reading us a list of statements that we're supposed to agree or disagree
Sorry,
with.
so this is separate from the absurdities question?
Well, I'm sure you find it absurd to think that humans have souls and that fetuses have valuable lives.
Do you want to jump in, or should I take the first part on this one? I think that setting off explosives is in order to harm people and destroy things is not a good idea.
But do you believe that the bombing of abortion clinics is largely caused by the belief in what you would consider absurdities?
I think that most people who bomb abortion clinics aren't doing it because they agree with what abortion clinics are doing. So I would say that people who are bombing them are generally bombing them because they believe that abortion clinics are evil.
Or at least the doctors.
So you admit that the belief creates the action.
Beliefs.
I wouldn't say admit. Admit implies that it's something scandalous that I...
Beliefs inform actions. If I believe the building is on fire, I'm going to leave it, etc. The thing that was giving me pause is that you were characterizing both whether I agreed that the action followed the belief and whether or not I immediately would agree that a belief was absurd, which is, at the very least, a pejorative statement on that belief. But in any case, yes, I think that a person who if I heard, hey, Mr. So-and-so bombed an abortion clinic, I would probably assume that Mr. So-and-so believed that they were bombing the abortion clinic in order to stop an abortion doctor from, in presumably their words, murdering babies, if that's what you're asking.
Do you believe that the 9/11 atrocity had something to do with the absurd beliefs of the terrorists?
Oh boy.
I think that the people that the 19 hijackers committed that act of terrorism in relation to their religious beliefs.
There's also a lot of factors that go into it beyond just religious belief, too. I mean, there's the huge history of U.S. imperialism, colonialism in the Middle East that was a factor. There are factors of...
But their absurd belief was a factor, indeed.
Okay, I'm deliberately not using the word absurd, but I think that there is a factor in that, but their decision to do that in the United States rather than somewhere else, or their decision to go through with that also are I think
we object to having words put in our mouths, which is what you're kind of doing.
Generally.
I'm asking you if you believe these things. I'm not saying that you do.
But I mean, I might, some of the statements that you've given so far, I might agree with it were it worded differently. But because of the way that you've worded it, I don't necessarily agree because you've put a particular emphasis that I wouldn't personally place.
Do you
what
think
EJ said.
That the mutilation of girls' genitals in the Middle East has something to do with Islam?
I think it's a cultural practice generally that exists. My understanding is that it also existed before the spread of Islam, but...
Do you believe religion causes any harm?
Absolutely, religion causes harm. It is not responsible for all harm, and not all harm done in the name of religion is harm that would have
been prevented without religion.
Exactly.
I got your back.
Thank you.
But do you believe that if you accept absurdities, you may commit atrocities based on those beliefs?
I think that if you accept things that are true or false and come to, if you evaluate the quality of human life in one way or another, whether or not your beliefs are false and ridiculous enough to be called absurd, you can commit atrocities. But yes, if a person believes something, they can commit an action, and depending on that belief, the action they commit may be an atrocity.
Do you very well?
Precision.
So, I believe that atheism is absurd.
Here we go.
Of course. And I believe that it has led to the moral breakdown of society. If you pay attention to places where atheism is prevalent, such as the West, people are denying such basic things as the roles and reality of the two sexes.
Yep, that's me. All right, what you got to say about that? I'm ready. Hi.
What? These people are acting as if you can simply choose to be a man or a woman.
Yeah, these people being me, yes. I'm a gender studies student. I can talk to you about that, yeah.
So you believe that you can simply choose whether you can be a man or a woman?
I believe that it's not a choice. I believe that gender is a social construct and that it is something that we perform and that is imposed upon us in certain ways, and that you can choose how to perform your gender, but you can't necessarily choose what your gender is. Your gender is something that you are. You know, it's something that is intrinsic about yourself, and it's how you situate yourself related to the society that you exist in. And it's not a matter of choosing, it's a matter of who you are.
What is a man? What is a male?
Well, it depends on if you're talking about in biological terms or sociological terms.
Yes, biological.
Well, actually, something that a lot of people don't realize is that biologically it's a really complex topic to discuss sexes because there's all these different gender markers and all these different biological sex markers that aren't as clear-cut as people think. You know, there's a lot of different species that don't have just two sex markers. And you could talk about XY chromosomes and XX chromosomes. You could talk about hormonal effects on the body and whether you develop breasts or not, and what kind of genitalia you develop, and what your fat distribution in your body is. But a lot of those are dependent on your genetics. And so
what about the human species?
So the human species, if you want to break down what is considered male, the things that are typically considered male are developing testes, developing a penis, not developing breasts, not developing, your voice drops and things like that. But those are things that are not as clear-cut as people believe, because you can have XX chromosomes, which are the ones that are typically considered female chromosomes, but you can develop testes and you can develop, a penis, and your voice can drop because there are other hormonal effects that come into play in terms of like your pituitary gland, your thyroid, and all those different things. So biological sex is not as clear-cut for humans as people believe it is. Anyone who's taken biology past the 9th grade could tell you that.
Do you believe that sex is a modified bimodal distribution?
Can you clarify what you mean by that question?
Almost everyone is either male or female, and there's a tiny sliver of people who say that they're something else, or they're transgender or intersex or whatever they want to call it.
So intersex people are absolutely exist. They are not a huge percentage, but we don't know that exact percentage because a lot of intersex people at birth, the doctor looks at their genitalia, and if you have what is called ambiguous genitalia, they pick whichever one it looks more like, and then you get corrective surgery. So if you are born and the doctor looks at your genitalia and says, well, you got a little bit of a penis, but it looks closer to a vagina, so we're just gonna go in and we're gonna remove those testes and we're gonna, things like that. Like, a lot of intersex people undergo invasive and non-consensual surgeries when they're born to basically rectify the problem. And so there's a lot of intersex people who don't know that they're intersex because of it. And so it's really, really hard to have exact statistics on, well, what percentage of people are intersex, what percentage of people are transgender, what percentage of people are, X, Y, and Z.
A tiny sliver by any measure.
Well, I mean, you could say a tiny sliver, but a tiny sliver of the human population out of 7 billion is still millions and millions of people. I'm a redhead, and we are like 1% of the population, so you could call us a tiny sliver, but that doesn't mean that we don't exist.
And I'm left-handed, which is about 9%. Lefties unite!
In my view, as has been the majority view throughout all of history.
That's a factually inaccurate statement, but okay.
You didn't even wait to see what I had to say.
As soon as you say something has been a view throughout all of history, it's a factually inaccurate statement because history is very long and humans have changed a lot.
I said the majority view. I didn't say this was the only view.
Continue. I'm waiting.
I'm not sure how you got the majority statistics on that, but continue.
It has been considered that there are two sexes. God created them, male and female.
That's not a fact, actually. A lot of societies have had third sex, fourth sex, fifth sex identities. There are societies right now that exist that have had for millennia genders and sexes that are outside of that binary category.
Yes, there have always been a small sliver of delusional people, at least.
I mean, you can use derisive terms if you like, but I'm still going to disagree with you.
Delusion is a factual term. Some delusions are a thing that exist.
No.
People believe things that are delusional. Hey, just to be really clear here, in your belief, when the Christian church was founded and started to develop, and there were less than 1,000 of them, less than 500, was that a tiny sliver of the world population?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a problem with people that form a tiny sliver of a population holding a belief?
Not necessarily.
Okay, cool. So maybe discuss the merits of that belief rather than the number of people that believe it.
I'm not saying that the number of people that believe it makes a difference. What I'm saying is only a tiny, tiny sliver of people are intersex. It's a mutation.
But what is the point?
Not how humans are supposed to be.
That doesn't require a mutation, and for supposed to be, you need to demonstrate intent.
It's a disorder. It's something that's...
Oh, boy.
Listen,
people are male.
Even if I were to agree that it's a disorder to be intersex, which I happen to disagree with that statement, but even if I were, intersex people still exist. Whether it's a disorder or not, they still exist and they still matter. Their lives still matter. They still deserve to exist as people without being oppressed and looked down upon and spat upon.
Okay, yes, okay. What is a woman?
Why do you need me to explain to you what a woman is?
What is sex?
Well, sex is a biological construction that is, put together based on the secondary sex characteristics that you're expressing, and there's a lot of variation in the way that those things can be expressed. But you can find all of this in a biological textbook.
That's true.
Said that sex is a social construct.
Sex is a biological construct.
Yeah. To be clear, Hamish, do you mean as a characteristic of an individual or as an action? Because the conversation is going to be very different depending on what you mean by what is sex.
Characteristic, of course.
I do my best not to make assumptions. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's totally fine.
It's a biological construction, is the phrase used.
Proportion of transgender people commit suicide even after surgery and acceptance.
Do you think that might have something to do with the society in which they live?
I said even after acceptance.
But that doesn't change all of the trauma, psychological trauma that happened before that.
To be clear, do you believe that right now transgendered people are experiencing a state of acceptance? We'll take, for example, in the United States.
Some of them.
Are they disconnected from the internet and television and the news generally?
Well,
I'm sorry, I watch the news and our president has taken some acceptance is a very interesting word for you to use there, but...
Your family might accept who you are, but society sure doesn't.
Which is good, but yeah.
People are mutilating the genitals and biology of children, and there will come a day when many of these people deeply regret and resent what was done to them.
To be clear, are you referring to,
gender confirmation surgery? Are you referring to female genital mutilation?
I was going to bring up religious examples with circumcision because Abraham, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Confirmation surgery.
Okay.
Yep.
You think mutilating a person's body to give them an ersatz set of genitals is confirmation? You think that's proper?
I think that is the term that is used quite regularly. If you are a person who voluntarily gets a surgery that you feel is what you need to be more comfortable in your body, and you regret that later on, then that's a choice you made. People get tattoos and regret them later on. You just have to sit there.
You having these surgeries.
I assure you they don't perform it on children. The only thing that they do to transgender children is to give them puberty blockers so that they can choose whether or not they want to go on hormones later on. And one really great thing about trans children and the way that they're taken care of today is that we have puberty blockers, and so they can wait until they're old enough to make that decision, and then they can choose. Well, actually, I think I am more comfortable as the gender that I was assigned at birth, and they can choose to go off the puberty blockers, and puberty will proceed as normal, or they can choose to go on to hormone replacement therapy and go that route. And they don't perform that kind of surgery on children.
Also, people get Botox and regret it, so I'm not sure how deep into this an adult making a decision about their body with the assistance of medical technology, therefore sin, you want to go down. There's a lot of, I'm not going to go too much into the who gets, cosmetic breast implants or facelifts.
That blocking the puberty of a child is a big deal.
It doesn't cause damage, and if you remove the puberty blocker, puberty proceeds as normal. It doesn't cause any kind of damage. Trust me, I have done my research on this.
Why can't I just decide to be a black female?
Because now you're bringing race into it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Why is that so different from sex?
Oh boy.
Yeah. So actually, transracial individuals and racial fluidity is a social issue that's being discussed more openly and more frequently in the United States right now. And there are a single Google search will find you wonderful research and discussion on that point. Actually, I think the most recent one that I saw was an article on one of the mainstream cable news websites. I forget what it is, but there's a myriad of information. We've already taken quite some time with this call. The description that you have, that you gave our caller today was how atheism ruins society.
Yes.
Are there other things in society that you think are caused by atheism, or did you want to highlight how you think these, presumably, first among them being the spread of the not believing in a God entirely, but did you want to try and cover how you think that that's related to not believing in a God? Because there are Christians that agree with EJ and disagree with you.
There are trans Christians, there are gay Christians, there are trans Muslims. You know, trans people exist everywhere. We're everywhere.
You're a tiny sliver.
We're still everywhere. A tiny sliver is millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
You're not in my house. No.
Unfortunately, I am not in your house.
That is also a factually correct statement about where EJ is at this moment.
The vast majority of people, normal, properly developed people,
I disagree with the term normal, but okay.
And properly.
have either XX chromosomes or XY, and they're clearly male or female. There is a blurry line, and some people might look male but be female, or look female but be male, or
which brings into question what the phrase "look male" means, but
well, you might have a snake that looks like sand, but it's a snake.
So in that metaphor, is one of the genders sand?
No.
Okay, so Hamish,
you have something that looks like one thing but is another thing. You might look female, but actually you are male. You have male biology. Therefore, you are a man.
I mean, you can say that. That doesn't make it true.
Yeah.
If you have male biology, you are a man.
Not if I'm not
or
one.
A boy. Yeah. Or a boy. You might be a boy.
Okay.
Why
I don't really know how to proceed besides no.
Well, I think the issue here is that he doesn't get how trans people work, and I don't think we're going to be able to convince him that we exist. So
no, you do exist, but you.
I was going to say, existence confirmed for me.
Yep. I exist. My identity is real.
Schizophrenics exist as well.
That is true. People who have schizophrenia do exist.
People who are wrong about factual statements exist.
Hi, Hamish.
Yeah, hey.
So you can't even tell me what a male is. You think there's a difference between being a man and being male?
Absolutely. There is a difference, because you can sit down and you can categorize what counts as biologically male. You could sit down and you could categorize what counts as biologically female, and there will be people who do not fit into either of those categories, and those people are intersex, and that's just kind of how it is. But the idea of man, woman, whatever other gender identity you might hold, those aren't necessarily based on your biological characteristics. You know,
society is
gender identity. You cannot simply decide your identity.
Gender identity is how you view yourself in relation to the society in which you exist. It's something that is personal. It's something that takes a lot of self-discovery to think about, you know, how do I feel about my gender? How do I feel about how I'm presented in society? How do I feel about the way that people perceive me?
So you said gender identity is how you view yourself in society.
With relation to your society's constructions of gender, yeah.
And what is gender in your view?
I think it just...
I think we're going in circles.
Yeah,
we're going in circles at this point.
So Hamish, this has been a very enlightening call. I'll let you say the thing that you're saying as always. I think I'm not sure when the last time you called was, but I'm also not sure whether we have your email or whether we've reached out to you about having more lengthy conversations in textual form. Are you comfortable leaving your email for us with our call screener?
Yes, that's fine. But you said, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said gender identity is how you view your gender with regards to society.
With regards to society's constructions of gender, yeah. So somebody who in one society might view themselves one way, had they grown up in a different society, might view themselves a different way based on how that society perceives gender.
And what is gender? Your definition seems circular.
So to be clear, I think it's circular because the questions are getting there. Hamish, I'm gonna pop you back on hold. It's been good, but we only have so much time for the show. I would encourage you to call back again next week. I don't think we're going to get EJ here again necessarily, or be able to convince EJ to take your call again. But if I'm going to put you on hold, and our call screener is going to take your email, and I promise to reach out to you over email.
There's a lot of resources out there that you can ask these questions about gender. Google's your friend.
Believe me, I have. Now let me just say.
Well, Hamish, actually, I'm gonna put you on hold so we can get to the.
May I say one last thing?
All right, I'll give you one last thing.
You have failed to define gender without using the word gender.
That's not an accurate statement.
Makes sense. It is. You said.
I mean, you can say that if you like.
Yeah. All right. So Hamish, we really got to go on. I'm sorry to cut you off there, bud, but I'm gonna go ahead and put you on hold. All right.
Very well.
All right. Thank you.
This is abominable.
Wow, that's a compliment. I'm abominable.
Abominable. Oh.
You'd be surprised how many conversations I've had like that. The second you talk about like trans people existing, there's always one that's like, well, what's a gender? Well, there's a whole field of study that tries to figure that out because it's really complicated.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Wow.
Should we talk some more about how I'm a faker, liar, making things up?
I'm
absolutely certain somebody in the comments is going to make a "my gender's an attack helicopter" joke. So if they haven't already, thanks for that.
That does happen. I've seen that. I would just in your defense say, no, you did define gender without using the word gender. That's if you're watching this recorded, just go back. At this point, it's probably minute and a half, 2 minutes. At that point, yeah, she did. Yeah, you did. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not sure. That call was super fun. I'm not sure whether you wanted to hit those topics anymore or talk about something else with our last caller.
Sure. I have those conversations very regularly.
Yeah.
Tends to happen when you are a vocal queer person.
Yeah. Yep. Also, I mean, that question probably comes up more than atheism does for activists.
It's a lot more visible. It's hard to look like an atheist because atheists can look like anyone, but
that's true. I don't regularly carry a Bible and tear pages out of it as I'm going.
Wear a pin that says "I'm an atheist. Ask me how."
Although they do make those pins, ask me how. Lack of belief in God. All right, let's get Olin on the line. Olin, you're on with Jamie and EJ.
Well, hello there. How are you today?
I'm marvelous. How are you doing?
Fabulous. Well, I'm calling to ask you a question from your perspective. You're the new generation, the younger folks taking up the cause. How do you see your generation differently than, say, I'm in my 60s, and I'm from Georgia originally, which is, highly steeped in religious culture. I moved to Oregon 30 years ago, and it is just a different world here. Portland is, I guess, some surveys say it's the least religious town in the country. So I'm just wondering, do you see the younger folks having a different set of problems explaining your position, or just what? I guess that's my question. I'm just wondering if there's a difference in the number of years that have passed since I was your age.
Well, the world is a different place. Society is a different place, but creationists still use the same arguments. So that explaining process is pretty much the same. It's a different world to explain it in, and the society is a lot more open and not terrible, as terrible. So, yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's better, right? Like it's at least in the United States, it's a better place. It wouldn't surprise me if Portland, Oregon, was the least religious, city in the United States. The society there, or the sorry.
I said there are churches around here, but I don't know anybody personally who goes to them.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what the population size is, but the statistics would probably be interesting. My understanding is that the culture in Portland, Oregon, is similar to that of Austin, right? Like Austin, is keep Austin weird first, and then Portland followed that, right? And the entire show, Portlandia, just reminds me of Austin every time, except that Portland, Oregon isn't in the middle of Texas with a lot of religious influx, right? Like the Austin Baptist Church here I think is a mega church, perhaps. Hopefully not that large, but yeah. But I would say it's very different because I think there's at least a slightly larger acknowledgement in younger and newer atheists that there needs to be more emphasis placed on like the epistemology and the way that people come to the beliefs that they hold. There's been so many court cases since the 60s that have just sort of set the legal precedent of like, no, you don't need to go make this legal precedent. You just need to contact the FFRF and the ACLU and tell them, no, you can't spend my tax dollars on a giant cross that says, fuck all non-Christians or whatever it says.
There is a big, challenge, and I can see that through the years. I was just wondering if people that you associate with your age group, do you think they tend to be less religiously oriented than, they say that 70% of overall of Americans identify as Christian. I just wonder if that holds true for folks your age as well.
I mean, I think that religiosity in our generation and younger is definitely declining. I mean, there's definitely statistics that show that. I mean, I personally think that the big fight for our generation is going to be less about, actual religion, because that is steadily declining. And of course, we do still need to fight for science education and things like that. But I think a lot of it is going to be more focused on the social aspects of within the atheist movement, there's a lot of division. And I think our generation's fight is kind of how do we unite atheism and work for a better future in that way, instead of fighting among ourselves because one person thinks that trans people don't exist.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm reminded of that just with the whole gender identity discussion. I've heard a lot of atheists resist the usage of a preferred pronoun that someone might say.
I'm a skeptic, so I can't agree with you about what you identify as.
Yeah, I mean,
just who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I personally use they, them pronouns, and that's something that a lot of people aren't very familiar with or comfortable with, which I totally understand, but I've had atheists tell me that, I'm making it up and that I'm just, an SJW. And I mean, I get it. I have a nose piercing, eyebrow piercing. I had purple hair at one point. Like, I get it. I get what I look like, but...
I have pink hair at my age, so... I know, crazy, right? But it's a complicated issue because people just have never experienced it this way before. They never, it's like, it's just, you're just wrong. You're just wrong about what you think you are.
Well, that and they're not used to having to learn new things or the world being different or accepting the fact that, like if from a young age you repeatedly and continuously are familiar with the development of scientific research and technological advancement, then, basically every year the world gets more interesting and more fantastic. And if you live in a world where it hasn't changed since the Iron Age, then nuh-uh, I'm right, you're wrong, Jesus.
And I think for a lot of people, because they haven't heard of it until recently, it didn't exist until recently, which is absolutely not the case. Like, trans people have been around for as long as there have been humans, but, we weren't discussed. We weren't talked about in polite society. My mom, when she was growing up, when she was in high school, nobody said the word gay. Gay didn't exist. She didn't know Liberace was gay.
Which is...
That's, things like that, and just because she hadn't heard of it. But it still existed.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I learned nothing. I had no experience. My folks didn't tell me anything about their thought. I don't think they had any thoughts on it other than, this is just the way things are supposed to be. And I was well into college before it dawned on me that I like boys. What am I going to do with this? So, anyway, that's all I was calling about. Just wanted to get your take on the youth of the atheist youth of America versus the old timers.
Well, I think it's probably easier for the youth now because we have a very, very clear united interest in like, oh, okay, well, you and I may disagree on tax policy or, I may be wrong about whether you exist, basically. But
I'm making it all up.
How many people here like theocracy, which is whatever. I'm going to not go into a rant about our politics currently, but yeah.
I think we're going places, though.
Yeah.
Us youth, the youngins.
The youths of today.
Great job with the show, getting the word out. EJ, you're fabulous today. Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
So on point. I love this. And I love all you guys, so I just wanted to call and say hi. And happy birthday to Janice from a week ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's in the chat. I'm sure she heard that. So happy belated birthday, Janet, again.
Yeah. All right. Oh, thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in, Olin.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Right,
Bye-bye.
Talk to you. Bye. Well, I think that's just about going to wrap it up. Did you want to hit any other points? We've got a little bit more.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I hope you invite me back.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I promise not to make you talk to Hamish again if you don't.
No. I'll come in next time with all my readings from my queer studies class, and I'll just here, let me read to you from this article about what gender is, and let me read to you about this theory of what it is.
It's highlighted right here.
Here's my notations.
Well, oh yeah, love rings. Okay, boom. Loved the world. And are you familiar with the sign-off at all?
I am not.
Okay, well. I
didn't do my homework, apparently.
Oh no, you're fine. You did your queer studies homework, so we're.
Yeah. I have to write a paper for that after this.
All right. Well, since I'm sitting in the chair that Eric usually sits in, I'll take his line. And audience, EJ is awesome. I think we're definitely going to have you back at some point. And
sure hope so.
To
Victor
those
calls again.
Oh yeah, he's called like the last I think 3 weeks, so we can get him. So to those that believe that there is a God, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. Have a good Sunday.